if you can. Have a look at them for me and see if you recognize them. Put your hand up if you see one that you recognize and what's happening. Yes, Joshua. Just do one. Okay, and what's happening at that moment? What's happening at that moment? Do you know? Aslan has died. Yes, exactly. That amazing lion, Aslan, is dead. Crazy. Okay, another one. I think somebody's waving their hand here. Yes, Isabella?
The top one is Harry Potter and Dumbledore, and Harry has just died and is going to come back to life.
So this is Harry Potter and Dumbledore. They're at a particular train station, aren't they? Which train station? King's Cross. Has Harry died? Well, disputed, actually. This might just be a vision that he's having. Rather than a particular soul or the Horcrux that's in him dying. But that's a complicated thing. Anyway, it's a very dark death moment, I think. And the final one at the bottom, does anybody recognize that? Those who might be a bit older, come on, hands up. Tom? Yes, the Balrog has killed him. Here he is. He is at the end of his life. And suddenly, in that moment, life is breathed back and he is sent back to Middle-earth. Now, in all three of these moments within the story, our hero has come literally, it seems, to the end of our life. It seems like everything is lost. Our hero is seemingly dead. Surely there is no hope in that moment. And in fact, in any great story, there is a moment when the hero is at the very darkest moments, is at the very end, and it seems like there is no hope left whatsoever. And I wonder where these authors got that idea from. Well, you might have picked it up already, those who are particularly good at being secret agents, because 2,000 years ago, we see this happen to the greatest hero of all time, our Savior Jesus, who had died on a cross. And for 3 days, he was in the tomb. And just like in these three stories, it seemed like all hope was lost. Surely this was the end. This misfit band of fishermen and tax collectors who had come together over the last 3 years following this incredible Jesus. Surely this was the end. But actually, the evidence points to something else. Now, just before the reading we heard today, and in fact, Liz mentioned it to us, we hear of two followers on the road to Emmaus. And we're going to watch a wonderful adaptation of their experience of meeting the hero, the risen hero. So let's watch that together.
The Lord, I thought they'd taken the body.
Who?
Priests, Romans, but he was there, in front of my eyes, in front of me, this near, right here, like...
I cannot believe what I'm hearing.
Thomas, I saw him.
You're all crazy, all of you. Dreams, visions, everyone's going mad. I'm leaving. Oh, the Lord! Oh, no.
We've seen him.
Where?
On the road from Jerusalem, on the road, right beside us.
He was with us. We didn't realize, we didn't recognize him.
That's because he's in your imagination, Cleopas.
On the road, Thomas.
We were on the way to Emmaus.
To my cousin's house. The women and children had gone ahead for safety.
We agreed to meet at Emmaus, hide there for a few days and travel back.
As we were walking, this man came up to us. Hello? Do you mind if I join you? No? No?
It sounded like an interesting conversation.
Some things are too terrible to explain.
Oh? What things?
What things? The terrible death of Jesus from Galilee?
Tell me about it.
Tell you? Where have you been?
We believed he was a great prophet. More than
That he was the chosen one who would save Israel.
Oh? The Messiah.
But how can the Messiah die the death of a common criminal?
Oh, foolish men. You're so learned. You talk of prophets. Have you never read the prophets? You talk of the Messiah. Don't you understand that he had to die? Don't you understand the scriptures at all?
He went through the prophets and showed us
Beginning with Moses, right through.
everything, the whole scriptures.
You must come in and eat with us.
Well,
No, it's too late to travel on. Please.
oh, well, if you don't mind, I'll stay a little longer.
As long as you can. Please.
Even then, we still didn't recognize him.
Who is it, Mother?
Someone that they met on the road.
Who is it?
Sir is our honored friend. Would you...
Will you do the blessing for us?
I will have to be going soon.
We understand. But,
I know who it is.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, who brings forth bread from the earth.
then he was gone. Vanished.
Just went.
Blessed be the King.
No one there.
Fantastic. Incredible. 2,000 years ago, that wonderful adaptation of those two disciples meeting Jesus on the road to Emmaus. Ralph Fiennes makes a great Jesus, don't you think? Now, does the evidence, if we are good secret agents, we need to look at the evidence. Does the evidence show that Jesus rose from the grave? Now, most historians agree, whether they're Christian or not, that Jesus was alive 2,000 years ago. But what about the evidence that he rose from the grave? Because that is absolutely central to Christianity. Well, let's look at the evidence, shall we? As good secret agents, it's important to do so. Evidence for Jesus' resurrection. Number one was the empty tomb. We read in the Bible that the disciples, in fact, it was the women first, who went to the tomb and found the tomb empty. And what was left in the tomb? What remained? Can anybody remember? The linen cloth. Even the most expensive parts of Jesus that would have been left, if he had been stolen by a robber, they would have taken the linen cloth with them, because that was what you could sell at the time. But even that was left. The tomb was empty. And some people could say, well, you know, the followers stole Jesus's body, or maybe the authorities stole Jesus's body. But then the body would have turned up in the weeks later as the disciples went around talking about how Jesus had risen from the dead. So the first piece of evidence is the empty tomb. The second piece of evidence that we see is the eyewitnesses. Everyone points to their eyes. If you point to their eyes, we see, historians tell us that many, many people saw the risen Jesus at many different points. In fact, at one point, 500 people saw the risen Jesus together. And you might say, well, they're all being delusional, you know, they're seeing visions, or they're just making stuff up in their heads. But 500 people seeing a vision at the same time, a hallucination, that's not right, is it? So the second piece of evidence is the eyewitnesses for the risen Jesus. The third piece of evidence that we see is the transformation of his followers. Now, in that video that we just saw, the followers had gathered together in Jerusalem. They had locked the doors. They were absolutely petrified of being arrested. They were scared. They were worried. They were literally going to be fleeing from Jerusalem, probably to never see each other ever again. Their hero, Jesus, had died. It was the end of this wonderful adventure that they had been on together. But it was the end, because Jesus was dead. But then something incredible happens. They meet the risen Jesus, and these followers, their lives are absolutely transformed. So much so that nearly all of them are martyred for their faith. They keep on proclaiming for years and years to come that Jesus is alive, that he is risen. They were absolutely transformed. And the final piece of evidence that we have that Jesus is alive is that Jesus is still impacting lives today. Literally, billions of people in our world say that they are followers of Jesus. And not a Jesus who walked 2,000 years ago, but a Jesus who is alive today and transforms people's lives today. I can speak of that. I know that many in this room can speak of meeting the risen Jesus and how Jesus continues to transform their lives. And if you want to talk to one of us about that, you can, because it is absolutely incredible. So our evidence for the resurrection, 4 things: empty tomb, eyewitnesses, transformation of his followers, and Jesus is still impacting lives today. So if we're going to be great secret agents, we need to make sure we've got our evidence. And if you're unsure about some of these things, maybe you come here today and you're not even sure about what this whole Christianity thing is all about, I would really encourage you to look at the evidence, to go and investigate it for yourself, to talk to people, those who know Jesus, and to ask them, is this really true? Because if this is true, it has 3 implications for our lives. Do you mean just clicking to the next one, please? To the next slide. Next one, sorry. The resurrection means new life. Firstly, for our past. Second, for our present. And finally, for our future. What do I mean by this? If the resurrection happens, if Jesus is alive, it means new life for our past. That means that anything that we've done in our past, we can be forgiven for it. It can be completely washed clean. We no longer have to walk with shame and guilt. We can walk as people who have been set free from the things that we've done in the past. And you might have done some really awful stuff that you would never talk to anybody about. And you still hold onto that. You still carry it. You still feel the shame of that. Jesus today can bring new life to our past and completely set us free from all of those things, so that, secondly, we can walk into new life in our present. That means that Jesus transforms every single day of our lives. In the present, we get to live a life, a full and a wonderful life. Jesus says in the Bible that we get to live this life with him, and that impacts every single hour and every single day of our lives as we walk into the present. That means that we can follow him in all the different aspects of what we do, whether we're at school, at the nursery, whether we go to work, whether we stay in our communities, in our neighborhoods, with our friends, our relatives, whoever it might be. Jesus can bring hope to our present. And finally, Jesus can bring new life to the future. If you spend any time watching the news, it can feel pretty depressing at the moment. It can feel like our world is literally falling to pieces in every different area that you can imagine. What does the future look like? Is there any hope? Well, the resurrection means that there is new life, that there is hope for our future. And as Christians, we are carriers, we are bearers of this hope in our world, declaring that there is a new life, there is eternity to come. And in fact, we can start to experience that eternity here and now today. And we can see transformation in all areas of our world. We can see our climate turned around. We can see world leaders make different decisions. We can see an end to hunger in our world. Serious things that are happening. As Christians, we carry hope that these things will be transformed. So today, I want to encourage you to believe that if Jesus is alive, and I believe he is, his resurrection means new life for our past and for our present and for our future.